All right, question of the day. What is the most excessive and ridiculous gun in my gun safe? I'll let you think about that for a moment. For some of you, it may not be a surprise, the Vepr12. From humble beginnings to fully customized monster, this gun has come a long ways since it left the assembly line in Russia. Now, before we go too much further, if you enjoy badass guns, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so that you're not missing out on any of the action. As always, I'll leave a link below to my website where all of the parts on this build will be listed because, as we all know, if videos aren't tailored to 8-year-olds, YouTube pretty much hates them. So a while ago I did a couple of videos on Panzerarm's BP12. Both those videos got a reasonable amount of views. For the most part, the feedback was all positive. Apparently a few people did not like my opinions on the BP12. Here's the thing, the BP12 is a decent gun, but it's no Vepr12. Any semi-auto shotgun that I ever shoot, it's always going to be compared to the Vepr. How it feels in the hand, the recoil impulse, how much customization you can do to it. Every single one is always going to be compared to the Vepr, and that's just how it is. For everybody that didn't like my videos on the BP12, I don't know what to tell you. The Vepr is the reason that I can't get excited about the BP12. That's just life. As we all know, the Vepr is now banned from import. One of the beauties of this gun is that most of the modifications available for it are interchangeable with just about every AK pattern shotgun, as well as AKs in general. That being said, if you have any questions about any of the parts, whether or not they're going to fit your gun, feel free to leave a comment and I'll help you out as best I can. I love the Vepr, but when you pick one up, if you're lucky enough to find one, they come with some of the worst furniture on the market. Mine came with a fixed tube stock, cheap plastic handguard, and pistol grip. All three of those absolutely had to go before I could even shoot it. I just couldn't leave those on there. Let's go ahead and just start at the front and we'll work our way back. All right, so the first thing that people comment on when I go to the range and I bring this gun is the muzzle brake. This is the GK2 muzzle brake, and yes, it is massive. I went with this brake because, first off, I like the look of it. Second, while I was collecting parts for this build, this brake was considered to be one of the top brakes for recoil mitigation with AK shotguns. Yes, the GK2 does add a fair amount of length to the end of the shotgun as well as weight, but once you put a couple mags through it, you can really see the benefit that this thing brings. Not only does this thing look just super badass, but I'm getting, I don't know, if I had to put a number on it, somewhere in the range between 40 to 50% less felt recoil. It's really hard to put a number on something like that, but I can tell you that it has made a huge difference in the way that this gun performs since installation. So if we move just a little further back, you can see I took that cheap, shitty plastic handguard off of here and I replaced it with the Chaos quad rail. My only complaint with this handguard is that on a gun that is already big, heavy, and awkward, the handrail itself is excessively heavy. I am considering switching out to a Dissonant Arms handguard. It can save me a couple ounces overall, but I'm torn between the idea of saving a little bit of weight and spending a couple $100s on a new handguard. I'm cheap, so let's face it, I'm probably not going to do it. So the next thing on the list for modifications is the scout mount for the Optic. This right here is definitely one of my favorite additions to the gun. Now the Vepr does have a built-in rail system on the dust cover. The only thing is that in the early times of me having this gun, I did notice that mounting an Optic directly to the rail didn't exactly hold zero very well. I know what you're thinking. It's a shotgun. It's not a sniper rifle. It doesn't exactly have to be holding 0. Believe me, I get that. We aren't talking about precision shooting here. The red dot is basically just giving me an idea, more or less, of what's going to get destroyed when I pull the trigger. But if you want to do 3-gun competition, if you really want to have some fun shooting clay pigeons, it's nice to know that your gun is always going to be zeroed. The scout mount does that. It keeps everything consistent, because instead of mounting to the dust cover, which is, you know, being taken on and off constantly, it takes place of the rear leaf spring sight system. Now you can go ahead and add one of these scout mounts to pretty much all AKs that have that leaf spring rear sight. All you got to do is pop that sight out. The scout mount goes down into the slot. It's got set screws that hold it in place. It's actually really quick and easy to go ahead and install this thing. Now the base of the mount itself did require just a little bit of fitment. I had to use a file and shave just a little bit of material off both sides to get it to fit exactly how I wanted it. Mounted on top of the scout mount, I've got the SIG Romeo 5. As a lot of people know, I'm running these on probably half of the rifles that are in my gun safe. I tried several red dots on this gun before I ended up trying out the SIG. Let's see, I had one that the dot started to flicker within the first 5 or 6 shots. I had one that just straight up disintegrated during recoil. You know, I had nothing but problems finding something that would handle the recoil of the Vepr12. Ended up buying the SIG Romeo 5, and I've had this thing on there for a long time, probably 2,000 or 3,000 rounds through it, and I'm still on the same battery. Haven't had a single issue. So this gun is what made me a believer in this particular optic. One of the things I have to point out with the scout mount in relation to the Vepr12, Vepr12 has a hinged dust cover. And because it's hinged and the scout mount hangs out over the dust cover, it doesn't allow you very much room for opening the dust cover. Now you can still open it enough to get the bolt carrier out, but you really have to fight it. So if you own a Vepr and you're going to put a scout mount on it, which I highly recommend, make sure that you order the quick takedown pin. I didn't think I was going to need it. I'm cheap. I didn't order it at the time that I ordered the scout mount. After running it for, you know, a couple of times to the range, I said enough is enough. I'm going to order this thing. The takedown pin is like 15 bucks. So I should have just ordered it in the first place. Don't make the same mistake I did. Just order it at the same time as the scout mount. With the quick takedown pin, all you got to do is grab the ring, pull the pin, and your dust cover comes right off. In the event that you have a malfunction or for whatever reason you need quick access to your bolt carrier, the quick takedown pin is definitely a lifesaver. It does require just a little bit of modification. Originally, there was a pin in here that was staked. I had to go ahead and drill that pin a little bit and then get in there and just pound it out with a punch. It wasn't a lot of work, but it is something that you need to keep in mind. If we go back to the other side, you can see that I have polished the bolt carrier because why not? This gun is all about excess. And if a polished bolt carrier isn't excessive, then I don't know what is. Once I had it polished to the point that I was happy with it, I went ahead and added this knurled charging handle. Now this thing is compatible with pretty much any AK that's out there. It doesn't matter if it's a Vepr12 or, you know, your standard 7.62. Honestly, I would highly recommend getting one of these if you own an AK. The installation is super simple. Slide it over the existing charging handle, add a couple drops of Loctite to the set screw, tighten it down, and you're good to go. It gives you a much better surface to go ahead and grab onto when you're charging the weapon. It sticks out a little bit further, a little bit bigger, and it's just rough enough to get a good grip on without ever having to worry about slipping off of it. I do want to give you just a little piece of advice. When you first install it, skip the Loctite. Get the charging handle in place, put the set screw in, tighten it down as tight as it needs to be, take the set screw back out, pull it off, what's going to happen is it's going to leave just a little bit of a mark on the front side of the charging handle that's originally on your weapon. Get a good quality drill bit and drill down into there just a little bit. Give that set screw something to grab into. Once you do that, put it all back together, use the Loctite on the set screw, and let it sit overnight before you shoot it. Without drilling that slight dimple down into the original charging handle, your set screw is not really going to have something to grab onto. No amount of Loctite in the world is going to keep that secure. You're going to take it to the range, you're going to put some rounds through your gun, and it's going to come loose, it's going to shake a little bit, and you're just going to get frustrated. Save yourself the frustration, drill a little bit of a dimple in there, and then go ahead and do the installation. All right, so this pistol grip right here is made by Command Arms. As I set up to do this video today, I went ahead and did a little bit of researching on the internet. I can't find a single website that carries it. It's seriously incredible. It's probably the most comfortable pistol grip I've ever felt. If you can find anybody that carries this particular pistol grip, just order it. Don't miss out on it because, I mean, I friggin' love this thing. It's got multiple inserts for the rear and front of the pistol grip to go ahead and customize the feel of it. You know, it's got grooves for your fingers. It's slightly rubberized, but not like, I don't know, overly squishy. It's got an amazing texture, and you know what? I'm glad that I got this while I could still find them in stock. Okay, so getting the stock I wanted on this gun was probably the most work out of doing this entire build. First, on the inside of the receiver, there were 2 pins holding the old tubular stock in there. I had to go ahead and drill the crap out of those and then basically knock that tube stock off there with a hammer. Pro tip, if you own a Vepr and you plan on doing that, buy good quality drill bits. Don't cheap out on those. I think I broke 4, maybe 5 drill bits. I did use cutting oil, but you know what? I used crappy drill bits and I should have known better. Once I had that old stock removed, I went ahead and added the receiver adapter and the pig nose adapter so that I could go ahead and add a mil-spec buffer tube for an AR, and then I have the ability to put on whatever stock it is that I want. What I wanted was the Mako recoil reduction stock. Inside it's got a spring system in there that helps go ahead and absorb some of the recoil. Obviously this isn't something that is going to be real useful on your standard 5.56/223 AR, but I'll tell you what, it actually makes a big difference for a 12 gauge. I thought it was going to be kind of a gimmicky thing, but the first 10 round mag dump of buckshot, it makes a world of difference. You know, the Vepr really is one of my favorite range guns. It's reliable, it's fun to shoot, and it never fails to draw a crowd. One of the things that I love about 12 gauges is the versatility of ammo. There are so many options out there. You know, whether you want to hunt birds or deer, whether you want to go ahead and just go to a gravel pit and destroy some shit, there's something out there for you. The ammo is relatively cheap, it's always easy to find, and you know what, if somebody's out there shooting clay pigeons and you bust out the Vepr12, it's going to be a lot of fun. Before anyone comments, yes, it took a lot of work to break the gun in to the point that it would reliably feed birdshot. The factories aren't exactly known for having the most consistent quality control. You might get one that shoots birdshot just fine right out of the box, or you might not. It's kind of luck of the draw when it comes to AK pattern shotguns, whether or not they're going to function reliably. That doesn't mean that they're bad guns. You know, sometimes they just need a little bit of fine tuning. My Vepr took a couple hundred rounds of slugs through it, some polishing on the bolt and bolt carrier. Also the rails that the bolt carrier slides back and forth on, I did have to clean up some rough surfaces on those. Also, there were a couple of spots on the top side of the hammer that were a little rough, and you know, the bolt carrier seemed to be hanging up a little bit, so I polished those out, and it's been fine ever since. That's too much work for some people, but not for me. This gun's always been on my top 10 list, and I'm glad that I got one. Of course, I couldn't have it bone stock. And of course, I had to Cerakote it once I had all the parts on it that I wanted. Yeah, it's excessive, and definitely over the top, but you know what? That's part of the reason why I love it. Again, if there's any parts on this build that you're interested in for, you know, your AK pattern shotgun or AK, follow the link below to my website. I'll go ahead and have the build list and links to all those parts. And you know, if you're not sure if they're going to fit your particular gun, you know what, just leave me a comment. I'll see if I can figure it out for you.